Welcome to episode 360 of the show. Some of you have a social media strategy, or rather a content marketing strategy when it comes to promoting your business. Now, what is a content marketing strategy? The idea is something that those of us in the wedding and the event space are already familiar with. That is where you put out organic content regularly over the internet so that your potential customers and your stakeholders can see you, see what you do, interact with it, and hopefully from there you get some business. So it's something that photographers used to do in the early days of Instagram, for instance, where you would put out your photographs or maybe pictures, not just from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective, just to get people out there used to and familiar with you and what it is that you do. Now, in other businesses, that involves a whole lot more with people producing blog posts, written content, white papers, opinion papers, different things like that. But the idea is essentially the same. You put content out there so that people get to know you and to like you and to trust you. And then from there, it makes it easier to have sales conversations. Now, of course, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know that that's something that I use actively with both my podcasts. That is this one that is business oriented, and the So You're Getting Married podcast, which is directed towards potential brides and grooms. So you know that this is a strategy that I am actively employing. So today's episode is just going to be a warning to those of you who are sitting on the sidelines and yet to decide, or better yet, it is a primer or a pointer to let you guys know what to expect before you embark on this kind of strategy. So number one, if you're going to make a content marketing play, then realize that it's something that takes a very long time. So you have to be in this for the long haul. You're not going to set up your blog today or whatever it is that is going to be your content strategy, assuming that you want to go the old photographer route, which is putting stuff out on Instagram and social media. So don't assume that you're going to start that today and it's going to be a hit tomorrow and then you're going to get business coming in through the door next week. So it has to be a long-term strategy. Then the other things that you should be aware of are directly tied into that. Since it requires a lot of time, then fatigue is something that you have to be aware about. For instance, there is a friend of mine who has been wanting to start putting up material relating to the African Free Trade Continental Treaty. And we put together some ideas, we hashed out the content framework, and so she started with her podcast. She's done 21 episodes so far, and they have been well received. But we've been having some conversations because she's experiencing some burnout. So if you're going to start this route, realize it's long-term play and you are going to be susceptible to fatigue and burnout. So how are you going to handle the fatigue and the burnout? Well, people have different ways of dealing with this. You've been listening to the podcast for any length of time. You know that I was interviewed recently on the Abeg Who Sent Me podcast. And Titi Ekundayo, who is the host, her strategy for that has been to outsource a lot of the production and back-end functions, and that helps her deal with the burnout. So she has a friend who's a dedicated audio engineer, someone to help out with the graphics, and I can't remember what other particular aspects he has outsourced, but basically outsourcing helps get rid of the fatigue for her. For other people like me, I take a much more minimalist approach and I limit the amount of work that has to be done. So I just whip up my phone, one take, and that's it. And that's what keeps me going, because there's not a lot of time and production value behind what it is that I do. So if you're going to have high production value, then you can outsource key aspects of it, or maybe just keep it low production value like I do instead and focus on the content being relevant, and then it helps you stay in the game for much longer. Then it also helps if you have a content calendar. It takes away some of the fatigue of deciding what you're going to record on every single day. So I don't have to worry about what I'm going to record tomorrow, because I just pick up my phone, open, have a look at my questions, and then the next topic is already there. So having a content calendar helps really well. What's a content calendar? That is just your note, your scrapbook, your actual calendar, your production sheet, whatever it is that you use, where you have all the topics listed out, the questions you want to answer, or a topic outline. Basically, week 1 answer this, week 2 address this, week 3 make a video on this, week 4 write a blog post on that, and that is basically your content calendar. So when you have that sorted, you don't have to worry. So I currently have a backlog of close to 500 questions that I haven't answered yet on the podcast, and so it takes away some of the fatigue, because I don't have to think about what to do. I just wake up, what's the next question on the list, and then I just address it. So those are some of the ways of dealing with the fatigue that come along with the content business. But bottom line is, realize that this is going to be a long-term play. You're going to get tired. You need to look for ways to deal with the fatigue, and these are some of the common responses that these are some of the common responses that people have come up with, which is: number 1, outsource if you want to have high production value. Outsource or pay for, depending on what you can do. I also forgot to mention, some people just reduce their schedule. So if doing it every day, like I do, is too much of a bother for you, you might make it weekly. If weekly is a problem, make it bi-weekly, and bi-weekly is a problem, then maybe make it monthly. Then what else? Have a content calendar, and then you can also schedule regular periods of rest. But just bear in mind that that one requires the most level of discipline of them all, because it's really hard to say we're going to have a 2-week break and then after that not delay by another day or maybe another week. So for people who like taking scheduled breaks, it might help if you record your podcasts or create your content in advance and automate it so that the podcasts are going up or the blog posts are going out even while you're having a rest. So that's it pretty much for today. Thank you very much for listening to the show. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.